didn't count votes. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and so then the question. Oh, I'm just waiting for the high sign here. Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was occupied, Chairman.
I'm sorry. Good evening. I now call to order the Thursday, May 26, 2022 meeting of the City of Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all those present and fellow commissioners. It's nice to see you all in person. I hope you are well. We will do item 2A, public comment, public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up for one of the three forms of public comment or public hearing tonight? All right, then we will move on to item 3A, consideration of and action on the minutes of the May 10, 2022 meeting. Commissioners, you have the meeting minutes in your packets. Any changes?
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Landine. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a second from Commissioner Hart, I believe that was. No. Oh, what was that? Commissioner Preek? All right, sorry. I heard, I was looking, I saw Commissioner Brown going for the button, and then I heard something here. All right, I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, if you'll vote at this time.
I'm not able to log in, so my vote is yes.
Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome. I look forward to having you with us in person.
Thank you. I'm trying to log in, but it's not letting me, so just for the record, it's a yes.
Okay, we've got a yes showing on the screen here, so that motion passes unanimously among the members present. We'll go to item 4A, consideration of and action on a recommendation for the proposed change in zoning from interim R1I to Plan Development PD Final Development Plan for University Commons Phase 3 to the members of City Council. Doug Schomburg, City Planner. Good evening, Doug. It's all yours.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. This evening is the consideration and action of plans that the Commission originally heard back in April, on the April 12th meeting, for the University Commons Phase 3 project. And we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of recaps just based on the information. Looking here at vicinity map, the property. This is at the immediate corner of US Highway 59 Frontage Road and University Boulevard. And this is one of the last vacant pieces on the northeast side there of Telfair. It had been part of TxDOT right-of-way in the past, and then was subsequently sold for development. This University Commons Phase 3 is immediately adjacent to Phase 1 at the north, and is sharing the entrance in order to access the property. Looking at the general land plan, it is in accordance with the Telfair General Land Plan as approved by City Council in the past, and is required to go through plan development zoning, which is shown just in a little bit more of a close-up with this red boundary in this location. So two aerials just looking at different directions. The one on the left just looking overview, current aerial of the property and how it interfaces with University Commons Phase 1, and then looking catty corner down to the essentially a southeastern direction toward 59, and in this case we can see stub connection here from the immediate connection in that's going to be attached to it. There is pedestrian sidewalk already along the University Boulevard part. So final development plan overview, 3.32 acres It is being proposed for commercial uses, retail, and services, and they did what they're calling option plans. We covered the option plans at your April 12th meeting for commercial in terms of up to 3 reserves and up to 3 buildings. They've got the maximum square footages listed there. And the proposed option for drive-through was shown. Rezoning is in line with expectations for the general land plan. The meeting that you had April 12th, no members of the public spoke on the rezoning case for the final development plan. There were discussions from the commission on things such as vehicular traffic and circulation. We talked about it both from the internal circulation and how this property gets its access from the phase 1, how that has been planned out, and there is not additional driveways that are going to be located on the 59 frontage or University. So planning has had to be very specific for that. We talked about one of their option plans for drive-through eating place and some of the concerns we had with that, and the possibility of looking further at queuing and some safeguards and location of pedestrian amenities. One of the things that the commission brought up that I'll show a close-up of was some of the proposed amenities were closer out at University Boulevard. They were following the process that they had essentially done for phase 1, but the commission felt as we get closer to that immediate intersection, some of that has essentially may have a diminished value, and asked the applicant to look at more internal location, which they have, and they've realigned that in the plan that we'll go over. Several other things, questions were asked about how we administrate the PD in terms of we've got 4 option plans, whether those would be able to be mixed and matched as pieces. We talked about looking at that further for some clarifying language that we thought could help so there's not any question in the future of how this would be administrated over time. And we also took questions and feedback on some building finish elements for essentially parapet-like walls of the buildings and what a person might see from across, especially 59 level in terms of the back of, I'm going to use the word back of house, but it's really kind of back of parapet type, which had been a concern from some of the phase 1. And so we agreed to look at with the applicant on their design, and since they were looking at potentially some tall parapets and how we could work to clarify that. At that, we talked a little bit about ongoing traffic impact analysis work, and not only for the overall mitigation, but also the drive-throughs, especially the restaurant type drive-through. And we have the TIA, which has been concurred with since that time, as well as some additional information to mention, not only in the staff report packet, but this evening that'll further reinforce that. So again, I'm going to take you through a few drawings you've seen before and also point out some any updated revisions. Option A was a plan that was more of a financial type institute, bank type drive-through and layout. This has up to 3 buildings. In all of the drawings, building 1, that 15,000 square feet doesn't change in the drawings, but the western side has different options on the option plans. This is option plan B, and this was going to have the potential for restaurant use with a drive-through. The option C plan had essentially a building without any type of drive-through lane there. And then option D had a consolidated 1 main building on the west side with a larger amount of parking. So these are still fundamentally the plans, and I will take you through especially the elements adjusted with the pedestrian amenities, as well as discuss the eating place drive-through modifications. Revised pedestrian amenities, as we said, there was a desire to have the applicant look more internally for that. I have just put one of the excerpts up here. There is options for all of the four scenario plans. Here we can see, again, the type of things: bench, trash receptacle, the bike rack, and trees there, brought in more internally to a setting over here. There still will be the connective parts going out to the sidewalk that's existing out there, but again, where they were going to put the amenities originally was out at those connectors, and now is more internal. And there's also another location in another one of the scenario plans that will do the same thing. Again, same type of amenities, but located more internally. We believe the applicant approached that appropriately, and believe that this was essentially the type of feedback the commission was looking for. Pedestrian plans, there are pedestrian plans for each. Again, the connectivity is still going to happen out here. They also have the future connectivity for an easement along US 59 that has been consistent along other PDs for in the future if there's ever a shared use trail type, and we will not have to purchase the right of way. It'll be dedicated in the platting of the property, just like has happened in the past with the adjacent center. Landscape plans, fundamentally the same, very detailed on landscape plan, and of course the code also applies to everything that's not stated here. The development code does kick into, but they do have the larger trees, the full shrubs, and the things that have been really strong in the plan development that goes beyond code. Wanted to talk a little bit about TIA mitigation. We do have Guillermo Salcedo here from the engineering department if there's some additional questions as we go, but one of the overall mitigations that the TIA is requiring is that for the development there's going to be essentially this left turn lane in. Right now this is solid median, and this will benefit not only this phase 3 but also the phase 1 there. For example, there's over here you've got the Murphy's Express, the sandwich shop, and that just kind of for some grounding here about where we're at. This will need to be put in as part of the infrastructure. That does not get codified into the PD. We don't codify the TIAs in terms of off-site construction, but they're required to follow that. So this is more of the external mitigation. And then wanted to focus on this drawing. This is a closer view of the restaurant eating place circulation. And in this case, we talked extensively with the applicant, some of our concerns. They looked at TIA and queuing, which did show that they could meet with restaurant with drive-through. We also talked about, was there anything else that they might be able to propose as far as conditions? And one of the things that they said they were looking at was the idea for more of a pickup-only type, which, of course, we're seeing more post-pandemic and that than we have ever had before. And they said, we're okay with not doing a menu board and ordering out there. We brought up the possibility of some type of signage beyond just that, which is literally pickup-only type signage displayed just for a more permanent structure. They had proposed that. We looked seriously at that, and with some minor tuning, we believe that this was reasonable in accordance with this, which kind of takes it one step further than the TIA work, which showed it could work with the queuing plan of estimated 8 maximum, but this is further. This is really pickup only, essentially, with a sign required at the site and for it to operate like that. Now, it does allow eat-in. That's not an issue for the restaurant. But again, this being more of a pickup, whether you order by app, phone, online, whatever it be, that is essentially how this would function. So they also clarified on the circulation plan that was for the bank that will not be used for eating places, just kind of a belt and suspenders. If we're talking about an eating place, this is, and any type of essentially drive-through, it would be this scenario. So again, quite a bit of work and discussion back and forth has gone on since the 12th. And we believe this is a reasonable plan, and we've got safeguards that we didn't have and really didn't have as an option for y'all to really discuss at the prior meeting. So we do feel like this provides us more confidence of less intensity. Perspectives, same drawings, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up, I was able to have a conversation with Commissioner Dawood prior to this evening's meeting. She had some questions, and one of them, she was looking at the perspectives as to the amount of stucco estimated to be shown. And of course, these are general drawings that are giving you these letters for this area is this type of material, this area is that. And she thought that she wanted us to take a second look at that. We did. We talked with the applicant, and they did do some calculations that it looks like it is more than what the maximum amount of stucco, scored stucco you can have is 20% on facades in the PD. And so we think this would be best tuned up ultimately to better reflect that. It was something that hadn't come to our attention before, but we've talked with the applicant. They know they would basically tune up this drawing and the other one that shows the potential Chair King building with the taller parapet here to make sure that what's being shown is not any more than what the PD would essentially allow in that 20%. What our proposal is for you essentially this evening is, if the commission is comfortable, passing with the condition that the prospective drawings for the stucco be revised prior to council. So again, we do take that seriously when something's brought up, and we want to make sure we take a closer look at it. While these are not black line drawings with exact percentages, we want it to be realistic. The applicant believes they can make those changes fairly quickly. But again, we wanted to point that out while we're going through the perspectives. And here you can probably see the best. What I'm talking about is the lighter area, which is going to have to be not more than 20%. The text is already in the PD. This is essentially making sure graphically we have something that represents it closely. Signage elements have not changed. They are carrying out essentially the signage type plan that was authorized, and I believe we talked about this some on April 12th, with the consolidated signs fewer, instead of the 125 feet all along 59, the fewer and slightly taller signs. So far, one sign over there near the entrance of the existing bank has been put up. They could put up more that were part of the sign plan. Again, you're normally allowed to have a sign every 125 feet along 59 and other roads. The discussions in the past were, could they do a little taller for fewer signs? And so that plan is essentially as it was. We support it based on, again, the past discussions from the PD. We knew that the commission had some questions and concerns on it, but again, that's essentially what it is from the same type of plan that was approved for the University Phase 1. Site pictures, again, just showing a few. Looking on the upper left, that is looking toward 59 from essentially at the McAllister's area in Phase 1. Photo on the upper right is looking same general spot, but looking further to the right, and you can see University Commons Phase 2 across the street, and then this area is part of the stub area that is going to go into this. And then the bottom one is looking from the 59 frontage road out toward what is Phase 1 currently. Future land use excerpt, just showing again, this is really about this regional and commercial services in this location. This is just a closer up view of the land use plan map. And finally, consideration points for the commission. It is in alignment with the City of Sugar Land's future land use plan. The Telfair General Land Plan is approved by council, The use list, we believe, is tailored to the types of things that were in phase one. Traffic impact analysis, as we mentioned, has been concurred with, including queuing plans and overall mitigation. We believe that the revised and adjusted conditions for the restaurant drive-through option with the pickup only is more appropriate, and we believe is reasonable compromise there. And we do believe that what we have now is appropriate and has provided those adjustments. A few things, like I mentioned, there is language in the PD that has clarified the building finish elements. There's language in the PD that has clarified the option plans in terms of how to carry those out. We have the updated circulation plan in terms of the option B with the drive-through, and that it is required to have pickup only and the signage. And we have that reinforced that the drive-through for the bank is not to be used for eating places. And like we said, we do believe that drawing with the Chair King should be adjusted slightly to perspective to more closely mirror the 20% max. That's everything we have. The applicant is here. If there's any questions, and the applicant, and as I said, Guillermo is here as well, if there's further questions on the TIA and/or any mitigation.
Thanks, Doug. Commissioner Landy?
So before we start, can we, we've got options all through our packets.
Sure.
Can we just, I don't know what it is we're actually considering. Can we just get a little bit of clarity before we jump into our discussion?
Well,
Sure, okay.
Ask about that too.
Okay.
So,
So,
yeah, I agree.
I'm going to toggle back. Let's see where we're at here. Toggle back to the option plans here. I apologize for just a moment. So the materials as attached, all the exhibits as attached, is the proposed final development plan. It includes the option A here, which is for 3 buildings, and the proposed drive-through is for financial type institution. If they were to go with this plan, that would be the setting. Again, in all 4 options, this east side of building 1 doesn't change. That remains in all of those. The option B is essentially 2 buildings on this west side, and this has the option of drive-through and can be eating place. And it does have the limitation in its circulation plan. Not only was looked at from queuing, but also the pickup only. And that language is in. Option C, this is a non-drive-through building, whether eating place or other. This could be retail, office services. Again, this is essentially the footprint. They could do anything in the use list that's allowed in those buildings. And then the 4th is just 2 buildings in the whole PD. A larger building here, 7,000, with parking where there had been a building. So the landscape plans are tailored to be able to carry out any of those. The pedestrian amenities are labeled in terms of being able to do which ones they comply with. The same thing for transparency, glass, that type of thing for the fittings, and those other plans. So they all essentially match up with being able to do one of these 4 options. So that's essentially what you're approving. The use list in there allows retail, services, and office. And again, the building layouts have to be one of these 4 plans in order to carry it out. So I'm wondering if I've clarified any for you there, or where we can hone in if there's.
So I guess my baseline question is, you're asking us to approve all of these options?
Yes,
or
this
to
is
consider.
this is the PD, right? And that's what we were looking at on the 12th as well.
Is that, I don't, at least in my memory, I don't remember that we've approved PDs with as much optionality as we have.
This does have more. We have approved some that have some option plans. One of the things that staff worked closely with the applicant on is, at one time they said, well, there's many different ways we may want to do this. And we said, is that something you can whittle down into several potential plans? So we didn't feel that that was a bad thing because it lets the commission and council vet out possibilities. But they did ultimately shrink down the ideas into essentially these 4 plans. So there's nothing that's not able to be carried out from an administrative standpoint. It also keeps the applicant from coming up and through a 6-month process and coming up and through a 6-month process, and that when things can be vetted out. So, we believe that is helpful. And again, it's one of those deals where if the commission, and we were trying to kind of indicate that on the 12th too, if there is an option plan that the commission sees like, well, we really don't think this is going to work, or we feel this for some reason, then that could be excluded in that. But we believe all these are workable plans. So in the future, the city may even be looking at redevelopment districts where we don't use a site plan based format. So the idea that PDs at least could have option plans is certainly something that we hope there is not a big objection to on these. We're just trying to work with applicants to get their proposals in a framework that makes sense, essentially.
I'll play along.
Okay. All right. So let's get feedback from the commissioners, and as is our custom, we'll do this in what loosely reverse order of seniority. So Commissioner Dawood, I'll start with you and ask if you have any comments or questions.
I spoke with Doug this morning, so he's addressed all the concerns that I had. One of the things that he didn't address is the spelling mistakes in the PD draft itself. Have those been corrected?
She and I did talk about on the use list, there's a misspelling of the word nursery under retail nursery there on the first page of the use list. So we will have that. We definitely have that marked down. We'll have the applicant correct that misspelling of the word nursery.
And then we also talked about that some of these options you do the applicant does go ahead and show us where the trash enclosure would be, but in some options they don't show that. So which is it going to be? Are we going to approve the options with trash enclosures or with that?
So the option, the one that does not show for that corner tract is the bank type use. And we talked with the applicant about that further, and it was kind of as I was thinking, I just wanted to confirm with them. The financial institutions, they are not going to be using a dumpster. They're going to be shredding and due to the confidentiality. So that will be one of the places where they will not be using that. They do have, if we go to that scenario, B, C, and
Doug,
D.
let me interrupt for just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Dawood, for
Yes.
the open meeting purposes, would you mind turning your video on?
Sure. Let me see how.
That works. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt, Doug. Go ahead.
No, we want to, that's great. So for those that are not the bank option, they have a dumpster proposed location for those, but that is the reason that they are not showing, and that was one thing I was going to check in with after our phone call this morning. Due to the nature of that particular business, they're going to use a service with that.
If I can provide a little bit of feedback, that is common practice in the financial industries, is to not have trash pickup service or trash dumpster service, but to shred all documents, and then if there is any trash, it's taken out by the cleaning company at night. So that is very common practice in the industry.
The reason I asked the question is because it's a layout, and all it shows me is that it's a bag. And the pad is, I think, what, 4,000 square feet? I'm trying to find that page.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. I don't see anything, any language in there that prevents it from being, another professional business occupying 4,000 square feet. Essentially, it doesn't say it's a bad exclusive for bank, which is why I brought up the question that, how do they propose to park a trash enclosure as well, knowing so well that there's very few parking stalls to substantiate 4,000 square foot of that. That's why I pressed on it.
It looks like they would likely go with the service, but we would have to look at that closer if they bring in something that doesn't comply with that, because we're going to need to make sure they meet the parking calculations no matter what. So I feel comfortable with what we have in the development code, that we have the tools we need on that at this point. But that's from staff based on that.
Doug, would that be addressed in permitting?
Through planning and permitting, because these type of things, rather than just a permit, have to go through a commercial site plan revision with us, where we look at the PD as well as materials. Development code also has requirements for certain minimum enclosures and things like that, and then anything in the PD text itself. So we have had situations where somebody later on, years later, has added a dumpster to be in compliance with that, but we do make sure anything that's not grandfathered, we do make sure that they are not taking up required parking to do that. Otherwise, they have to use a service for that. So that's based on what we've experienced up to this point.
Okay, thank you.
But it was good question, and we did want to make sure we were addressing.
Yeah. Commissioner DeWood, if you could leave your video on, please, for the meeting.
Sure. Actually, I have no control over it. Someone from that side is controlling it.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
All right.
All right. No worries at all. Well, spoke too soon. There you go. There we go. Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you for all of the information and the presentation. I had a question on this signage, not specifically about the signage that, with the placards that are out along the freeway, but there's a comment in, I guess it's in section F around freestanding signs. And it talks about that each one of the properties can have a freestanding sign on their property. So does that mean that each building can have their own freestanding sign? Am I interpreting that correctly?
So what they would have to do on that is meet all the separation requirements. So what you do have in our developments throughout the city is essentially a first by right, a first come, first go on that, in terms of your spacing exists no matter what. So you're never going to have, likely, if you've got multiple different businesses and if you're not sharing, you're not going to have more than X amount of signs at a site, because the way the city looks at it is all about the spacing. At every 125 feet, for example, for different premises, or if it's one premise, there's smaller. But that's all essentially driven by your distances, your spacing. So we haven't prohibited any particular business from having a sign here. We don't get into more of what's like a POA type element with the city, although they are covered by a Telfair Property Owner Association there.
So if a building had multiple tenants, then there could be a sign that's right outside the building with the tenants, is what you're indicating.
Right along the frontage, right.
Frontage.
Right. So it's really about spacing. A lot of times, and we saw in phase one, they did several that were the shared signs. That works pretty good to be able to get, First Colony does that a lot down here too. But it's essentially about the amount of frontage in terms of those street signs.
So
Now,
then
wall
what
signs are set up in the code differently.
what controls do you have around the size of that sign and?
They're
And
all
the
code-based,
construct.
they're all fully codified, so they're not proposing, other than that slightly larger 59 type sign, everything else is straight standard code for the city signage. So unless you're doing something different in the PD that you're proposing, like those fewer and taller 59 ones, everything else is the standard development code for signage that the city has.
And then that would be specific to those, that particular building then?
They would be, wherever they want the signs there, they would have to comply with that code. So again, we're
Okay.
treating them the same as we would anybody else in the city, with the exception of the 59 fewer signs and a little taller with the 12-foot rather than the 6-foot.
Okay.
Can I jump in
Yeah.
there just because, so which controls? The plan?
The plan and the city's code. So
Okay, but the
anything
city-
that the plan doesn't set out as different in terms of, again, the only thing we're really saying is that's fundamentally different there is about the 59 related frontage. The other is real standard for development in the city. They're not proposing something different than the code fundamentally on a lot of that. So, and they're setting up their center type
But this
signage.
says they can place a freestanding sign and the code says 125 feet, but on the plan, they show thousands of feet between these signs. So which controls? The PD verbiage here that says they can put a sign based upon the city code, which is 125, or the plan that says there's only going to be 3 signs on 59. that are
That
12
plan
feet
is
tall.
more restrictive. So in that case.
But it doesn't say that. Does it? What's controlling? Is it? I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm trying to unconfuse me. Is it the 125 foot, which is the city code that says you can place 125 feet between signs?
Except where this is more restrictive.
And that's what it says in the code.
And that's what it says in this for the signage. That the separation requirements, number of feet per frontage, the 1 per 250 feet is in the text of that. So
Okay, but that's 250. What does this show here on the signage that says 3? So could there be 6 more signs there on the frontage?
no, that's the most they can have. That frontage is where, what I'm saying is that frontage,
Am I missing something?
they've already set, Telfair set all the main signage along 59 to have the spacing. So that the signage requirements along the 59 frontage are more restrictive. They can be taller, but they have to be separated out by not less than 250 feet. So they did a measurement on that, and I can have Jason take it.
Oh, are these 200? I don't have my glasses on. Does that say 250 or 2,500? I guess it would be 250. Okay. Never mind. I read that wrong, Doug. I don't have my glasses
Well,
on. I thought that said
just on that,
2,500.
Oh, okay, I'm just
Just-
glad
and I'm
I'm
like, how
I'm
is
not
that
too
possible?
far out. I was thinking, man,
No,
maybe I've got
My
something.
apologies. I
but
thought that
right.
was 2,500 feet. I was like, how are
was
you
like,
going to get
that
both?
is
And
a,
if I may, just on partially that point, so where is the language that says that the more restrictive piece applies?
well, let me put it to you this way. I want this to sound real respectful. The PD is the language. The PD is an alternative to the code. So whatever the PD has that's different,
Okay,
and when the ordinance itself is put together by legal, which these attach to, it sets up that criteria.
okay, so you're
P and Z
saying that
doesn't see that.
nothing in the PD can conflict with the code in the first instance?
Except unless it's an alternative regulation, which generally the PD is being used in this case to have on the signage, it's the 59 elements that are different.
Okay, and
I
you're
confused
worried
it.
about, you were worried about an internal,
I thought there was a conflict between,
Right.
but I
Right.
read that number wrong. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, I led us down a hole
Okay.
that wasn't
The
a problem.
sheet that is made up and that's made up after, created after P and Z makes their recommendation is the actual ordinance with the ordinance number. And in that, it has some boilerplate type language that essentially states the development code and how those things correlate. It's very standard, but again, that doesn't get put together until we go through the P and Z for the fundamental PD meat and potatoes, if you will. So that's a standard boilerplate every time, for every single ordinance.
Okay, no, thank you.
CUPs as well, when y'all are doing a conditional use permit.
I just one other question for clarity.
Go
One more
ahead.
question. In the write-up around building finishes, it indicates that the director can approve alternate or secondary from what's, I guess, ultimately approved from the, or defined within the PD. So how does the director get assigned for the particular project?
The director, of course, is the planning director in all of our, based on the way the development code
Okay.
assigns that. And I'll give you a quick example. There are cases every now and then, not really common, but where a particular material comes along that needs to be equal to or better from a quality standpoint, and maybe it's essentially carrying out. We had years ago some of that with architectural metals, and this one was more of an anodized or more of this or that. So they can present that type of thing to the director, and it's looked at, and a determination can be made. It's fundamentally not used very often, but that is something that the director under the development code has the ability to do. And this is just clarifying that the applicant could bring that type of thing forward. But you still fundamentally need to have the look and feel of the PD that P&Z and Council has reviewed and approved. We don't see it happen very often.
Commissioner Hart?
Thank you for your letting me in there. I apologize for that. A quick question that may not be about, who pays for that turn lane? Does the developer pay for that and then the city execute it, or does the city pay for it as part of just infrastructure to support development?
The developer pays for those improvements. The city oversees, they've got to submit, of course, the actual infrastructure plans, signed and sealed, make sure that that's all done in accordance. And then the city inspects that. Ultimately, that is through letter of acceptance after inspections and that becomes part of the city's infrastructure. Except in cases where you've got an access easement doing some private things. But in this case, this is all going to be essentially presented for acceptance to the city once it's been constructed. And it'll be approved plans that the city approves and then inspections that the city carries out.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Are there going to be stop signs at the exits of the parking lots on from this to phase 1 or District A, from District E to District A?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to see if Jason may be able to help us with the chair's permission.
Good evening. I'm Jason Miller with Boucher Design Group, the architect for the project. Yes, there would be stop signs to control traffic between the two phases.
Thank you.
Thank
Also,
you.
thank you so much for working with staff and making all our corrections from the last meeting. Appreciate
Our
that.
pleasure.
Well, while you're up there, do you know what that easement is? That is, it's on every sheet, but I never saw what it was called out. It kind of splits like maybe a third from the southern side, southernmost boundary. I don't know how. If you look at the option A that's up right now in the gray area, the gray area goes right to the middle of that easement on the sheet east side of the right.
Oh, this here?
That easement, yeah.
Those are landscape setbacks.
But
Oh,
like,
okay.
like Exhibit B-2.1.1 also shows a pipeline easement right there. True.
There is a pipeline easement that runs up along US
Okay.
59.
So that's just landscaping setbacks that you're showing on there.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And that pipeline used to actually cut across this kind of diagonally. Newland had to relocate that on this side and actually also on the other side of the university.
So it terminates there?
It goes along and then is under the road and continues on to that
Okay.
western property across from on University Commons.
Okay. No? All right. That's it. And I'm also comfortable with the plan to they update the perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Good evening. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple questions for you. There's no need for a deceleration lane coming off or from 59 toward this driveway. It's 390 feet from what I can measure.
Good evening, Guillermo Salcedo, Engineer Department. Based on the TIA, there was no need for that diesel lane.
It's a fairly busy road, so we don't feel that the traffic in and out of this with these added businesses, that there's going to be a backup getting in this driveway that would cause slow traffic, concert night, anything like that.
We look at through all the TIA requirements, and the hood left that you had there is the mitigation they require for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another question on why you're up here. This driveway that is going to be the access point for this, I'm sure was designed prior to consideration of developing this tract. Is that sufficient to feed all these businesses with this one entrance? You're comfortable with that as well? Because it was designed just for the original tracks.
I'll check on that. I'll get back to you on that one, but it was designed for original take all that
Right.
track. So I believe it is.
You're adding however many parking spaces here and traffic counts.
No, yeah, correct. That we look at the traffic counts, not the spaces.
Right, but I'm just, sure. Okay.
Yeah, we look at the vehicle count, not the spaces on it. But and that was one of the mitigations that left hooded coming
Sure.
southbound.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll take a look at that. I'll
I
ask the
think I
question.
can help with that. Going back memory lane, the first step, the PD for, not first step, but the PD for phase one had both, it had this spot specifically, and it had approximately over here where it would. So although they didn't have layout plans yet for this PD essentially, with the approval of that, said that this is the way this tract is going to get access to it. So that was the 2016, 2017.
So
essentially.
it contemplated eventually doing this, is what you're saying?
That's correct. It was an enabling for that, and the access was already known that there was not going to be any further one. And again, part of that had to do with the property being taken out of right-of-way status with the state and being converted to private property. So that took a while, but it was already known that it was probably going to be at least the acreage, at least as much as this. At one time, it was contemplated to be a little more, but the state kept more right-of-way here and kept a little more right-of-way along here. So it's slightly smaller than what actually was contemplated originally.
Okay.
From that. But that conversion is sort of a part of what sort of led that process.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything in the PD that contemplates complete development, and in other words, that they have to complete whatever this is going to be within an allotted time frame, or could this be they build one building and 2 and 3 never come online?
We don't normally put those type of requirements in or request that of the applicants. They will have to meet minimum access and flow in terms of whatever they build. But again, we typically have these that build over time. In this case, I think the applicant has more anticipation that the eastern side.
Because the parking
Right.
and the access is integral based on
Right.
counts and the uses, that some of this,
Right.
a vast majority of it needs to be developed to support that traffic flow.
Right, and they will have to do the access in order to adequately serve. For example, building one, they're going to have the adequate access to do that. They'll have to have the parking for it. Same thing with
And that
any
will
of the
flow
other-
through planning and with
exactly
developmental. Okay.
right. So we have these multiple steps, if you will, that are to carry those things out.
My last comment is, and I don't know where this is in code or not, but for me, even screening it with landscaping, the most expensive part of this land is out on 59, and we're putting dumpsters on 59. Is there a better place for those, to put those on the back of them? They tend to be trash generating. They tend to not look as well as the rest of the property. And I'm in my mind's eye driving down 59, and I can't think of other places that have dumpster enclosures on 59?
That's something that we can see if the applicant would like to address. This is something that obviously a person could move over and have a space transferred from here or that.
Right.
I think probably, I guess, the closest is that eastern side. It's not something that we've really talked with the applicant about, but
I mean, I don't think it's something that should hold up to development, but I think consideration should be given to that in terms of curb appeal for Sugarland.
It is something we have tried to consider with the layout, given the nature of this site and complexity and having to fit stuff into it. I know the owner does require the tenants to keep the dumpster closed, and that's something I've seen on the Phase 1 project as well, that they enforce that and make sure that those doors are closed at all times.
I've got 160 properties, and I can tell you enforcing dumpster closing is an impossibility. And I think you'd agree with that, Andy. So I would like to ask, and again, we probably can't put it in the document, but I think it's important to give strong consideration to that, of the placement of those dumpsters when you do the design on this.
Okay.
Because no matter what you do with them, they're still they attract vermin, stuff blows out of them, they leak. They're just not what I would think you'd put up front. So anyway.
Okay, certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Parikh?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. One that Commissioner Hart alluded to on the cutover. The cutover is happening regardless of which option that goes into place. The cutover on University, that's happening no matter what, right? Regardless of what option is chosen.
right, exactly. That's mitigation for the PD period. That's correct.
And then on the drive-through, that's not a drive-through. Where is that in the land use? The uses, sorry. Is that codified somewhere here? And I couldn't find it. Maybe I see eating places, but I don't see the.
We had, give me just a minute.
Maybe
We
I'm missing it.
had,
It's in the notes.
we had them put, they revised some of that.
It's in the notes, but
right,
does it need to be in the acceptable uses?
It is all part of it.
Okay.
It all works together. Right.
Got it. It's added. I see it. Thanks. Then the other question I had was on option D. Why was the drive-through not considered for this option, given that there's so much space and parking and all that? Is there a reason why we decided to put it in B?
For the option D, it was considered to be something like a sit-down type restaurant that might be sold off to a different user and would therefore not really have a drive-through. So that's why we did not include it.
And then on option B, if we're doing the pickup drive-through restaurant, that financial services or bank, that could also be a drive-through with multiple lanes coming on the other.
The financial would be the option A there.
Okay.
With the two lanes, but we specifically had them place a note in the circulation plan that not be used for eating space. That way we're not mixing the
Okay, I see
the
it.
two.
Yeah.
We've got the queuing distances and things plotted for the restaurant with drive-through. Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Ursel?
Thank you, Matt. I have some questions for the applicant, if I could. We've met already, and obviously you spent a lot of time working with staff. Just a curiosity question: how much time do you think you and your company spent on this?
Less than the first phase.
Okay, a year, 6 months.
For this one, I would estimate probably 6 months, not quite a year.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, you've had the other phase done for a while. Is there something that's spurring phase 2?
In terms of this phase of phase 2?
Or this phase of the project, yes.
I think mainly it's that the owner wants to get the land developed and not just have a green space.
What type of customers do you think the owner expects to get here? I'm just curious if they're going to be strangers to the city of Sugar Land.
I think the intent, especially with having the particular tenant going into building 1, is to cater to the local population.
Okay.
Fill in any services that maybe the phase 1 development hasn't provided on a much smaller scale, obviously.
Will it be targeted towards millennials or Gen Zers from outside of Sugar Land?
Possibly.
Okay,
I think a challenge with the millennial side is they're looking for more experiences
sure.
than just
Sure.
shopping.
I know these are kind of tough questions, but I know that the city council and mayor take these very seriously. Will those people frequent these restaurants and locations?
I think if they're local to the area, they will.
Okay, sure. No, that's fine. What confidence do you have if we as a planning and zoning board approve this today, basically following the guidance from the land use plan and city staff? And then the time we've had with you, both this meeting and the previous meeting, what confidence do you have that the city council and mayor will approve this following that, all the time you spent on this? Is the confidence high, low, medium?
I feel like the confidence is high because I feel like we've tried to accommodate the questions and comments we've gotten on the PD and what we've presented.
So you've worked diligently with city staff?
Yes, sir.
You've worked diligently with this board?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so you expect to have a fair hearing before city council?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you very much. I would present to this council that we no longer consider approving these plans until city council gives further clarification on how they value volunteer boards in the city of Sugar Land, the time spent on land use plans, different boards and committees, the planning and zoning committees, as well as all of the other committees that work in Sugar Land on a volunteer basis, giving up hundreds of hours of their time to only have city council tell them that their time is not of value, that the plans that they develop won't be followed, and that the recommendations from city staff and the boards that present items to the city council and mayor of Sugar Land are then rejected and summarily dismissed, and then furthermore take the work that those boards have done and try to rewrite them from this dais.
I'm sorry, what does this
All right,
have to
hold
do
up,
with
hold
this?
up, hold up,
with
hold up,
this,
hold up. Are you done with your statement?
I am, thank you.
Okay, that's a statement. It's not related to, it's not related to an agenda item that's before this commission right now. If there's motion practice, you can make a motion. You can vote according to your conscience. But for now, I will ask Commissioner Landine if you have any questions or comments.
Yeah, I do. So Doug, so I asked about the options. I would like to just be sure that I'm clear on, it looks like by my count, there's 7 different layouts, right? So you got the building layout, you got pedestrian amenities, landscape on down the line, right? Is the intent here to take option A and have it cascade across all 7 of those categories?
Right, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I
Your
just wanted to be sure I
landscaping
was-
would look like this for option A. Right.
Gotcha. Okay. So, so essentially there's option A, B, C, and D. So there's 4 plans
That's correct.
in front of us that are all, would be considered cohesive across all of those, like these 7 plans, pedestrian circulation, all that.
Sections, right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
All right. That's helpful. Okay. And then I would like to follow up on Commissioner Brown's comments about the dumpsters. I hadn't really thought about that until you brought it up, but I do think, I mean, I'm sympathetic toward and take the applicant at their word that they, considered other options throughout the plan. I think a a condition that we could put on this that is reasonable is to make adjustments to the landscape plan to, instead of just have facade around the dumpster, to require some sort of green landscaping that then would make it a little more aesthetically.
Like a combo type.
Yeah,
thing.
and I'm thinking back, Doug, to you remember that project that was going to be over by TI and the parking garage, and they did some interesting stuff with screening,
Like some
our
green screen.
the green
or some other
screening,
elements.
right?
Right. I think so, right.
So, whether, even if it's just putting some things that vines could grow up on, right? Simple solution that would potentially make for a more aesthetically pleasing final product. So I would suggest that, and I'll maybe need to study before I make a motion of that nature, or a condition rather, about how to specifically what we would change in the landscape plan. So
I might have some suggested language that would allow us to work with them a little closer. If that's something that the commission feels strongly about in any type of recommendation for approval, it could be essentially additional landscaping around each dumpster wall.
Yeah.
Essentially is what I think you're saying.
I would love that guidance. I do think it's
Right.
actually fairly important that it's not just, not to get too specific here, but like, red tip petunias that go around or shrubs that may take, several years to grow, right? I mean, let's be prescriptive in, whether it's a vine or whatever. And I'm probably not prepared to do that at
if
this
it's
moment, but
Screened by the back of the building, then perhaps it's not necessary, but if it's out in the viewed area, then yeah.
correct. So Doug, I would love your guidance on how to codify that in the PD before we take action this evening.
I believe probably the most straightforward way, based on what I'm hearing, beyond just some additional shrubbery, which we have done in certain cases of screening. I think what you're really talking about is planting of vine type for the dumpsters along the 59, any dumpsters along the 59 frontage. If you don't mind, I'd like to turn to the applicant just to see if that's.
Yeah,
Well,
and while you're
love
doing
to hear.
that, if I may, I mean, would it be sufficient if we passed, if we put forth for consideration an additional condition that the applicant would consider additional mitigation strategies for the dumpsters on the front of the property and leave it at that?
I believe we I believe we've got enough in that and what we're hearing to work with them further, depending on y'all's comfort level.
But importantly, not recognizing the difficulty of potentially alternative placements within the section. I think that's important, that we're not necessarily challenging that. We just mitigation strategy, I think,
Well, but that
is
could,
right.
I mean, relocation could also
Could be a mitigation. Yeah, that's a
mitigation
fair point.
strategy. That's my thought.
Doug, can we ask the applicant just to speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely.
To that point.
We're definitely open to exploring the other options of relocation, because we do try to approach that first of getting it hidden behind so it's in the service area and not visible to the public. I think the challenge of this site specifically is trying to fit all of that, get all the boxes checked. But we're certainly open to other mitigation efforts if it's more intensive screening of landscaping to try and shroud that, if the relocation is just not feasible. But we're open to do that.
Maybe I'll yield to Commissioner Brown if you.
Yeah, we've encountered before, I think, full screening or something that states that, a complete screening of the masonry construction or something to that level, that just, what you don't want to do is go in with 5-gallon shrubs that they're going to look great in 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, I do think that a condition that the applicant work with staff to explore mitigation strategies so that the end product is not a bare masonry cinder block wall or enclosure. Thank you. All right, now that I've wrapped my head around this, it's less choose your own adventure than I was thinking at the beginning. So
Coming together.
I try to do the math on the actual number of options. If
The matrix.
but no, thanks, Doug.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that it? Sorry. So I was going to ask the same thing, and I brought this up last time. I mean, there's options A through D for these different parameters, right? So there's 4 options for the final site layout plan, for the landscape planning, planting plan, building, et cetera, et cetera. So I know how you're going to answer this, because I know the intent here is that if they select option A, it's option A for all of those categories, right?
Right.
How do you know that from reading this?
Okay. But one thing we did have them add some language on based on that question, and I want to get it in front of me just to make sure I'm
Thank you. And that's why I want to call it out.
So they had, they said the final site layout plan options shall be standalone. They're limited both to the number of buildings and the square footage for the respective plans as illustrated, and they call out the 4 plans for that. So that
Okay.
was language that wasn't in there before, and we talked to them about what was the best way to address that, just so even though we know how we administrate it, everybody's clear, and staff changes over time, we're still functioning. So that was the additional language that they put in
Okay.
there after the plan.
Could you just point to us where that is in the plan?
That is, I'm sorry, that is in it's in the main final development plan text under D, the development regulations, and y'all have that section then that gets into the square footages for option A, B, C, and D, and it is the little e letter. That is page 7 of 50.
This starts with the final site layout plan options.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Right.
Yeah. And just food for thought, I don't know if this is a good suggestion or not, but visually, especially when you're compiling the exhibits, it might work to say option A, have to group everything by the option, right? So option A, under that, next to it, you would have that would be 2.1.1 for the final site layout plan for A. And then the next one would be the pedestrian amenities for A.
Take
And
you
the
through
next
the
one would be the
complete set
landscape.
of that. That
So when
makes
you're
sense.
looking at,
Right.
when you're looking at it,
Right.
and the regulation that all the A's go together, all the B's go together, all the C's go together. I mean, I think the language addresses the concern, because we don't want cafeteria plan options here.
Right.
We want it to be consistent. So just a thought.
Good thinking. Yeah, we'll take a further look at that as we go forward with these types of things.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, but I will point out that it sounded like in addition to what's set forth in the plan, there was a discussion about revising the,
I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One question. Okay, I just
Well,
have
I'm
one
not-
quick
yeah,
question.
go ahead.
And it's just a paperwork question.
Yes, sir.
On page 23 of the application, it talks about queuing analysis, and it contemplates a drive-through in this. That'll be
I
modified
was just going to call out.
so that it takes it out and changes it to a pickup window.
We'll make sure everything matches. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? All right, let me make a motion that we recommend approval to the city council for the proposed change in zoning from interim R1I to plan development PD, final development plan for University Commons Phase 3 to members of city council, subject to the additional conditions. Number 1, that the perspective drawings regarding the Chair King location be revised to reflect the 20% maximum discussion, the rule that was discussed. Number 2, that the use list be corrected to reflect the correct spelling of the term nursery, and that the applicant commit to work with city staff to consider additional screening and mitigation, including relocation of the dumpsters on the plans that call out dumpster locations so that the end product are not bare cinder block enclosures. Did I get that pretty close? That's the motion.
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Chair, I wish to further state again, maybe
Well,
this is
hold
the
on,
more.
you're done. We're not going to listen to any more statements. There's a motion pending,
Okay,
and I'm calling for a vote.
This is Commissioner Lau. My vote is yes. And I don't have access to do it online, so please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, so we can record Commissioner Dawood's vote. And I don't see the tally, so I don't know. All right. That motion passes. Thank you to the applicant, thank you to city staff, and thank you to commissioners. Item 5A, reports, Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison Report from the May 17th and May 24th city council meetings. Who had those?
I had the 17th. The only thing, well, they canvassed the election results. They honored some of City of Sugar Land first responders for First Responder Week. The only thing that might have been concerned was that they were approving the tax abatement agreements, the guidelines moving forward. And then they went into a closed session, so it was, I won the lottery for that one. It was pretty simple.
Thank you, Commissioner Hart. Who had the 24th?
I did.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, as you probably all know, that was the vote that we had, that was held on Tuesday in terms of the Sugar Creek deal. There was a lot of passion in the room that night. A lot of people spoke. It did not pass. Meeting lasted until about, I think about 8:30 p.m.
Okay. All right. Item 5B, city staff report.
We have nothing further. We appreciate y'all's time. Your next meeting will be in June on the second Tuesday.
Want to check your notes?
But we have more. We have more. Sorry.
No, I literally just thought about this. So, good evening, commissioners. So, one of the things that 3 of the members of the commission have been joined on a task force by the 3 members of the city council, focusing on implementation of our activity centers that were identified in the land use plan. Today was their first kickoff meeting. And this is something that they will be working on, reporting back to you. At some point, we'll be sharing, I'm sure, drafts of potential new regulations for activity centers, mixed use zoning districts potentially. So we'll be just keeping you all updated. This was an item that was identified in the land use plan as an implementation item, action item. So we are moving forward. This is phase 2 of a project that we've been working on. I think we've kind of briefed you on it before, very high level. But 3 members of the commission, Chair Kelliger, Mary Smith, and Chuck Brown, sorry, I'm looking right at you, joined the mayor, Councilmember McCutcheon, and Councilmember Kerbali, thank you, today for the first kickoff meeting. So we appreciate your time. I know it's another meeting, but definitely appreciate. And you got sandwiches, so yes. Just wanted to mention that, and that's something, work that will be coming forward to the commission as well.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Lisa. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it. All in favor? We are adjourned. Have a good evening.
Good evening, guys.